Katz and Cosby, entertaining and informative on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
And you guys, big decisions coming from the Supreme Court today. Who better than Fox News legal analyst and big best-selling author Gregg Jarrett? Gregg, what did you make of this big decision on mail-in ballots? President Trump said this is a big loss.
Well, it's not about ideology. It was a specific reading of existing federal law. And the court said that the federal statute specifies when voters must vote, but says nothing at all about when mail-in ballots must be received. So, it's up to Congress to pass such a law if it wants ballots to be received by Election Day. And until then, states have the power to manage ballot counting, which is what Mississippi did in this particular case. This is consistent with the Constitution. The Elections Clause in the Constitution grants Congress the power to regulate federal elections, but it gives states broad authority to administer the times, places, and manner. And that, of course, includes, the counting of ballots. I think this was sort of a way for the Supreme Court to say to the people across the street in Congress, if you want to do something about this morass that occurs in places like California, pass the Save America Act, which has a provision in it to resolve this issue.
Well, and that's the big issue. We talk about this on the show, is these mail-in ballots. And that's a big thing that President Trump has said. He doesn't think mail-in ballots should be just kind of gratuitously sent to people.
California.
Right. California's a great example,
Judge.
Just
mail them out. 20 million ballots just mailed out, unsolicited.
Whether you're sick, whether you're elderly, it doesn't matter. They just kind of send it out. How are you going to feel like faith in the process, Gregg?
Yeah, Justice Alito in the dissent today pointed out, this process, and he was referring to California, only fuels distrust in the integrity of elections. I lived for 30 years in California. My friends tell me that, they'll get 20 mail-in ballots sent to them at their home for people who don't live there anymore and haven't for 20 years. And, do those ballots get filled out wrongfully and counted improperly? You've got to know that it does happen. And, again, it just fuels distrust.
Yeah, it totally fuels distrust. Judge Weinberg.
Good to talk to you, Gregg. There's a case going on now in the lower federal courts. It has to deal with the power of the states to remove people from the rolls, the registration rolls. And that's running into opposition again from the Democrats. What could be the objection of having clean election rolls that only people who are citizens and are entitled to vote are on those rolls, especially when you're doing unsolicited mail-outs to people who haven't requested ballots?
You object if you want to cheat.
Right.
I mean, that's the simple answer. And, I think we've seen this time and again. The whole Democrat mantra has been, let's open the borders, let's bring in millions of people who are here illegally, and, we hope two things. One, that they'll vote illegally, and number two, if they become legal citizens, they're going to vote for us because we let them in. So it's all about power for Democrats, not about election integrity.
Did you see also, obviously last week was the temporary protective status, and that was a big win for the Trump administration that they have the authority. That's on the Syrian and Haitians. Did you see, was it Seth Moulton, the senator, came out? I couldn't believe this. And he said...
The congressman running for the Senate.
Congressman running for Senate, forgive me. And he came out from Massachusetts, right? And he came out and said, well, maybe this is a good reason why we got to pack the court. In other words, if you're not happy with the Supreme Court decision, let's change the Supreme Court.
And he's supposed to be a responsible Democrat, by the way. So he tells us.
Yeah, well, every time he opens his mouth, he tends to prove he's a dope. There were two decisions on immigration, and both, I think, are victory for voters who want federal laws to be enforced. And I think it was also a reprimand, a rebuke to these activist judges who brazenly usurp presidential power. You mentioned the TPS law. It specifically states that judges have no authority to question or countermand the decision to end temporary status, and yet judges have been ignoring that and imposing their own biased judges. And in their ruling last week, the Supreme Court said, hey, knock it off. You have no business weighing in on this. What's so striking is that the court had to explain to those same judges that the law means what it says. Temporary does not mean permanent. In the asylum case, being in the U.S. does not mean being near the U.S. Now, that should be obvious to anyone with a brain, but the problem is, there are too many federal judges who are driven by their own political bias and arrogance. They think they're above Congress and above the president, and the court was trying to tell them, no, you're not. But I doubt they feel humbled.
Yeah, I doubt they feel humbled, too. Well, Gregg, Jarrett, thank you so much. It's always so great to have you on, Gregg, and get your common sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Gregg.
My pleasure.